And we're live. Hey guys, this is Jan from DoraHacks, and welcome to the workshop of the XION Believathon. So today is the first workshop sessions, and we have an incredible developer workshop, which is about getting started with XION. Before we start, let me give you some background of this hackathon. As the largest Web3 multi-chain developer incentive platform, it's an honor for DoraHacks to support the XION Believathon. And we're looking forward to all the incredible and amazing projects building at this hackathon on top of XION. So today we are very happy to have here Angela, Developer Relations. And without further ado, let's welcome her to start. And for the audience, if you do have any questions during the session, feel free to drop them in the YouTube or Binance Live chat room. So whenever you're ready, feel free to start.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela. I'm a Devrel at XION, and I would be more than happy to conduct this workshop for you guys. I'm not sure. So the pinned comment in the live stream and the workshop handbook that is linked in the announcement messages on Discord and Telegram should actually take you to the document that I'm going to be sharing throughout this workshop. And I'm going to start sharing right now. And we'll go over the contents of the workshop and what we're going to learn through it. So you can expect, so this workshop is going to be us sort of going over the XION chain, some things that make XION unique. And towards the end of the workshop, we'll be sending our first transaction on chain. And so throughout the whole process, we'll be exploring the tools that are available to us and some of the prerequisites to get your system up and running with the tool sets. I am gonna share my screen now. So this is the doc that you all should have access to and should have the link for in the pinned comment in the live stream or from Discord or Telegram. So like I said, the expectation that you can have throughout this workshop is that we'll go over the basic understanding, introduction to different tool sets. We'll also be getting ourselves familiar with XION-D, which is the CLI tool to interact with the XION chain. And we'll be requesting funds from the faucet, sort of learning how to, the faucet is like a little bot that we have created on Discord, specifically for Believathon builders. And towards the end, we'll be sending our first on-chain transaction. So going over to the first section of this workshop. So what exactly is XION? The way we sort of describe it is that it's a blockchain that has been purpose-built for user experience. And there are certain modules that are baked into the protocol that make user experience as seamless and as smooth as possible. And this is what we will be exploring through the hackathon. And this is what we look forward to with the builds that we will be getting in this hackathon. Like how much can you abstract away the chain when you're building for the users? And the primary use case, or the primary, like a good measure of how ADAPT is, or how good ADAPT is, like how easy it is for users to be onboarded onto the application. If you see currently, most of the applications in blockchain ecosystem require a lot of onboarding. So even if someone knows about crypto or knows about Web3, it takes a lot of time for them to get themselves familiar with the tool sets, to know that the application that they're interacting with is not a scam and it's not going to rug them. And it just keeps going on that way. So it has always been difficult to build Web3 applications because authentication has always been separated out of the hasn't been separated out of the state machine level. What I mean by that is something that I mentioned here and also in these notes that you can go over later on, is that the way other blockchains function is that so the authentication of every transaction happens on the state machine level, which means that any private key, when you have a private key that signs on a transaction, you are basically interacting with the blockchain directly, which means that you're doing low-level transactions that a user should never be aware of. You should never allow users to interact on the lowest level of any state machine. So it's similar to how, so for example, if we have a computer system And if you give users, so you use a login password to get into your computer system and get access to the operating system and software. Imagine that, but instead of you being able to create a login ID and password, you are basically interacting with the interacting on the assembly level to create your password and to sort of unlock your account. And for all of that, you're interacting with the CLI directly, which means like you just have a terminal and that is what you're interacting with to get access to your own computer system. It's just like a long way of saying that users should never have access or should never be forced to interact with those lower levels of any state machine. And what Xion allows you to do as a dApp developer is that abstract away all of the authentication for the user, which means that account creation and management is a whole framework of itself, which is what we call meta accounts. And all of this is baked into the protocol, which means that you don't have to wait for like a new you don't have to wait for a new framework to be introduced or a new standard to be introduced on the blockchain. You can just start using meta accounts and account abstraction right away as soon as you're on Xion chain. And authentication of transaction is separated from the state machine, which means that so everything is programmable. Like the entire authentication of your transaction is inside a smart contract account, which is completely programmable. And because everything is based off of a smart contract account, which is what we call meta accounts, you can essentially program the entire state transition function. And what this means is that now the method of creating a transaction, now that it is programmable through a smart contract, the possibilities are endless from here. So you could imagine AI agents sort of interacting with each other on a completely abstracted chain. And the user doesn't really have to know exactly what the chain is doing or how the blockchain is functioning. And you can imagine other possibilities from here as well. But one thing to remember here is that meta accounts is like the core feature or the crux of Xion blockchain. And that is what makes account creation and management as seamless as possible. And it sits at the heart of creating really seamless user experiences. And also, like, now that we have abstracted away the very thing of transitioning state, so very core of transitioning state, now that accounts are abstracted, you can abstract the chain away, you can divide, even the devices get abstracted, you can abstract the gas prices, and everything from there is just abstracted all away. So this is what makes Xion like the perfect testbed for creating applications that are using blockchain, but also allow for really easy user onboarding. Next, we're going to go into the tools that are available for us. And throughout this hackathon and specifically for this workshop, these are the tools that we'll be introducing ourselves with. And these are the tools that should be more than enough for the application that you're building. So abstraction settings is the account management framework. So when I was talking about meta accounts, this is the sort of dashboard that any user can interact with. The user first logs into this dashboard, and after this, they can easily access any dApp that's deployed on Xion chain. And it's not just Xion chain. Like I said, because the chain is abstracted away, Xion also allows interacting with other chains in such a way that your smart contract account can own other smart contract accounts on separate chains. So yeah, going back to the tools, we have the abstraction settings. This is the account management dashboard, and this is like the first entry point. So if you're following along in this workshop, I would recommend going over to settings.testnet.burned.com and sort of just try logging in. And then you can also add more login methods here. And you'll see that you have an option to connect your MetaMask, your passkey, OKX wallet. The initial method that it's going to ask you to connect with would be your email. So, and now once you're logged in here, you'll be able to log into other Xion apps, which I'm going to show an example of just now. So for example, the next tool is actually a Xion app. is the XION Developer Portal. This is something that you'll be using to deploy Treasury instances. That's a whole new concept, and we'll go over it in our further upcoming workshops. But for now, you can bookmark this link, dev.testnet.burn.com. Again, all of these are linked in the document, so you should have access to all of these links anyway. And when I click connect, I'm going to see that I'm going to be welcomed with the connection page automatically because I'm logged into my account dashboard. So I'm going to click allow and continue. And once it grants permission, it's going to take me to my developer dashboard. And this is something that you will see. Don't worry about how exactly Treasury contracts work and what they are. If you're curious, the document is available on our documentation website. It's docs.burnt.com/Xion, but we'll go over them in a later workshop anyway. And the next tool that is available is the SDK, the abstraction SDK. And there's a guide that I've linked here if you're curious on how to use the SDK right away in your React app. But this is the SDK that makes it easy for you to use or connect the Meta account, sort of interact with the Meta account inside of your dApp that you're creating for your users. And this guide from our documentation website will sort of guide you through how to install it. It is super quick and easy once you understand how things are working. In terms of development effort, it shouldn't take long. The next thing that we're going to go over is the installation prerequisite. So this is something that we can go over together if you're following along in this workshop. And we will also, so towards the end of these next few minutes, we'll be having a Xion daemon installation in our system, and we'll sort of interact with it a little bit, see how it's working, and sort of get ourselves comfortable with the CLI. Even though the CLI is not something that you'll be actively working with when you're creating your app, it's always good to know, and it's always good to have this tool set and get yourself familiar with how to use the daemon. And yeah, so I'm just going to go over the installation prerequisites. In here, you'll see the list of sort of tool tech stack that you should have installed in your system. Because I already have it installed, I won't go over into too much detail on how to install it, but you can basically just click around and download the stuff that's linked here. So for Golang, you'll just have to download the package based on your system, Linux, Mac, or Windows. If you already have Golang installed, and if you want to see just want to confirm the installation, you can just enter Go in your terminal and see if it's there. If it's available, you'll see that it's going to entering Go here should output like the help command or the help description over here. I'm going to bring my terminal to the right so that I'm just going to... Okay. Yeah, this should be easy now. For Rust, you'll see the commands that are available here. You should be able to use curl from here, and you should be able to install Rust using the curl command. It's super easy. There's nothing crazy going on here. Once it's installed, you'll be able to do something like this. And I'm just gonna, you should be able to do something like Rust C version to see if it's been installed. And Rust would install Cargo with it. And Cargo is the package manager for Rust. So we're just going to do something like Cargo version to see if it's installed. Docker is another software that you would need to install, and you can just click around and download the package that is appropriate for your system. And if it's installed already, you can check here. And the last and final thing to install would be the WASM. It's just actually, so you don't need to install WASM directly right now for this workshop because we aren't really creating smart contracts. This is something that we'll go over in further workshop. So for now, if you have Golang, Rust, Cargo, Docker, you're good to go. The next thing we're going to do is in the linked document, the next thing is we'll be installing Xion daemon. So I'm just going to go over this page. And to do that, you just want to go to the Xion repository, which is available at github.com/burnt-labs/Xion. You want to install this into your system, and it'll give you access to the Xion daemon. Because I already have it installed, again, I won't be going over the entire steps and installing it, but all you have to do is clone the repo and cd into Xion and just run make install. And it should give you, and it should create, it should do all of the necessary installations for you. And this is what we would need the Go package installed for. So just make sure that you definitely have Go installed correctly in your system. And if this is something that you're stuck at, or if you face any errors, feel free to post in Telegram or Discord, and I'll be able to help you there. Once it's installed, we'll just see if the installation has been correctly made using Xion daemon, Xion D, and you'll be able to see all of the available commands here. And that's pretty much it. So now our system is sort of ready for us to play around with the daemon, see what's available for us to do here. And we are gonna try the faucet out and make our first on-chain transaction. So the first thing that you can do once you have Xion daemon installed is that, let me just clear it up. So first, and maybe I'll zoom it in. Okay. So first thing you want to do is maybe just enter Xion daemon. And if at any point you're stuck in terms of the commands, or if you do not know what commands are available to you, you can always just add a help flag, and it'll be able to tell you what other commands are available, and even for subcommands. So for example, you know that you want to do something with tx, but you don't remember the flags or the arguments, just add a help, and it'll be able to tell you how to interact with the daemon. We are gonna try and see if we have any keys listed. If this is your fresh installation, the result of this command should be an empty array. But because this isn't a fresh installation for me, I have a few accounts already. So in your case, if it's a fresh one, you'll see something like this, an empty array. And to create a new key, you should be able to do something like Xion D add keys add, and it needs, so I forgot to add a name. This is something that's required. So I'm going to add name like demo key. And it created a key for me. So this is your first sort of account on Xion. It's not on chain. It's just a local key. It's not a meta account. It is just for us to test the CLI out and to test the chain out. We're going to dive deep into meta accounts at a later stage once we are familiar with the Xion chain and once we have created our first on-chain transaction. So like it says, it's a local account. There's a public key associated, the name that we just gave it, and this is the address. This is the mnemonic. Obviously, don't copy it because it's just a demo key. But yeah, make sure that you keep it safe if you plan on using mainnet funds on this key. Anyway, so now that I've created a new key, I'm just going to do Xion D keys list. And this is the demo key that I just created. And I have a bunch of other keys as well. One thing that you could do is maybe try querying the balance. And the way to query the balance is, so you want to use the bank module, if I remember it correctly. I always forget these commands, and this is why I mentioned about the help command. So I want to do query. I want to do query bank because I want to query the balances. So I'm gonna query bank, and let's see what it tells us. Oh, sorry, Xion D query bank, and I wanna get balances for, let's say, my account. Let me just do a Xion D keys list, and I'm going to try and query balances for this account. And for this account, it should error out if I just press enter here because I haven't given it an RPC. By default, Ion Daemon just tries to look for a local testnet, which would be available here. We haven't spun up our local testnet because that isn't something that we require right now. You can just use the Ion testnet to deploy your applications or test it out. But I'm gonna use this over here, maybe just so it's visible. And for the testnet details inside the documentation, you should always be able to go over to the references. And inside of references, you'll be able to see public endpoints and resources. If you're ever confused, just open documentation and look for something like chain ID. And it will be able to tell you where exactly the chain ID is and the RPC endpoint. So we're mostly interested in this. And the testnet thing is something that we'll mostly be using and referencing throughout the hackathon, whatever build you're making. So I'm just going to use this RPC. I'm going to go back into my terminal, and I'm going to give a node flag and enter the RPC. So as expected, my balance is pretty empty, and total is 0. I do have some funds in one of my test accounts, but I'm just going to quickly go over how you can request funds from our Discord faucet bot. And this is only available, and it's available for all of the hackers who are registered via DoraHacks for the hackathon. And you should be able to do something like faucet, enter space, and enter your address. And this address is something that I want funds on. So I'm just going to use that. I'm going to press enter. And this, because I just requested funds, I'm not sure if I'll be able to, but you should be able to request funds if this is your first time. And after a cooldown period, you'll be able to request funds again. So I'm just going to press enter. So my cooldown period hasn't really expired yet, but yeah, you should be able to request funds right away if you are requesting for the first time. So just make sure that you're doing something like /faucet, enter your address. And this is the XION faucet channel under the Believathon category. So now I want some funds in this account. And to do this, we're just going to make our first on-chain transaction using one of the other accounts that I already have funds in. So I'm just going to query balances for my other test account, which happens to be this one. And I'm going to enter. So I do have some funds here. It says that I have 2 denominations. This is the USDC and this is XION. And I have some amount here. So I'm now going to create a XION daemon query, XION daemon instruction to send funds from this account to this account. And we're then going to query the transaction, and then we're going to view the transaction on the Explorer. So I want to do something like XION D, and I want to create a TX. So that's the main command that I'll be using. And then after that, I'm going to be sending funds. So because so we can actually look into the help for this. And I want to send funds from one account to the other. I'm going to use the bank module for it. Subcommands, and let's see. So I'm going to be sending funds from one account to the other. Send. And it should have the sender and receiver as the next two commands. Sorry, next 2 parameters. So we're going to add the from key address, the to key address, amount, and flags, if any. So I'm going to clear it up. And so this is the command that we just created, tx bank send. And I want to send from this account to this account 100 XION. And I'm going to give it the RPC. And I think it takes it as node. Actually, you know what? Let's press enter and see. It's gonna error out because again, it's gonna try querying the local host node, which we haven't really provided. So we're just gonna check if it's the node or the RPC, the flag type that it is expecting, and it says it's node. So we're gonna do node, and again for the RPC, you can refer the document in here in our documentation website. Just copy this, paste it here. It is also going to expect a chain ID. So we're just going to give it a chain -ID. And again, for the chain ID, you can pick the chain ID from here. So in this command, we're going to be sending 100 XION on this node, this chain ID, from the GHG account to VFU account, and we are going to be querying it later. So it's going to ask us to confirm. I'm going to press Y. And there it is. So the transaction hash went through, and we can always pick this transaction hash and look it up in the Explorer. Before doing that, though, we're going to check our balances first. So let's use this command again to check our balances. And it says 100 XION, which is great. So the transaction went through. So to query, if you have a transaction hash that you want to query and you don't want to use the Explorer, one thing you can do is also just use the query subcommand. And I think it's the TX. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, so query TX paste. And again, it's going to expect the node. I'm going to give it the node. And because I already have it here copied over, so I'm going to press enter. And this is going to log out the entire details of the particular transaction. And we can also just look it up in the Explorer. So the Explorer is actually the final tool that I want to share in this workshop. You can go over to the Explorer here, explorer.burnt.com/the-chain-ID. And once you get here, you should be able to just search for the transaction hash. This is the transaction hash that I just copied. I'm going to click confirm. And it's going to take me, why hasn't it taken me to the transaction hash? Let me just try that again. Here. So this is the transaction that we just created. This is the type of message that was sent. From address to address, both are my accounts that I just created. And yeah, you'll be able to see everything that's going on in the transaction. So this was our first on-chain transaction on XION testnet using the CLI. And to get here, we went through a bunch of basic concepts, got ourselves familiar with what meta accounts are, the installation prerequisites, and also how you can request funds from the faucet on our Discord. And that's pretty much it. So feel free to bookmark this workshop handbook that I just created. And you can also expect more handbooks to be created under here. This is a public doc that you should always have access to, and you'll be able to see all of the notes in here. As soon as the recording is done, I'm going to add the recording for this workshop in this handbook as well for you to refer to at some later point. And yeah, so I'm just going to pause there and see if we have questions. If not, that was all I wanted to share for today.
So first of all, thank you very much for the workshop. I think for the audience, there was a lot of information, lots of new things to learn about XION. We have a few questions from the audience. Maybe we just start at the very top. Yeah. So someone was asking whether this recording will be uploaded somewhere. So the answer is yes. And then the next one would be, can meta accounts be accessed without email?
Yes, they can. But so to create a meta account for now, you'll be using the dashboard, the settings page that I just shared. And the initial transaction will happen via the email.
Okay. The next one would be about the testnet. If Or like when will the testnet in the dashboard change to mainnet?
Oh, when
sure,
we
like-
launch, as soon as the mainnet is launched.
Okay, and then also like, is there, or if there is SDKs for Golang?
Oh, well, you don't really require SDKs for Golang. You don't have to, you wouldn't have to get too deep into Golang. That is required just to make sure the Xion daemon is set up correctly. So, yeah, that shouldn't be required for the hackathon. Just make sure that Golang is installed. And when you enter Go in your terminal, it displays something. And that's pretty much it. That should be good.
Okay. Maybe we can give the audience some more time to digest all the content you provided. Maybe one more question from my end. Like, what would you like to see at this hackathon? Like, what do you hope our hackers building? Maybe you can give them some type of inspiration or something you would like to see. That could be very useful and make some impact.
Like I mentioned during explaining meta accounts, I mean, the fact that we have completely like made sending transactions programmable through the smart contract accounts and through meta accounts. From there on, I mean, you could do anything in terms of sending transactions. So you could actually, the way you could think about it is that how deep could you go into making transactions programmable? That's just my way of thinking. So you could maybe, have certain AI agents doing stuff on the Xion chain. But that's like a wild idea. Another idea that was also shared during the opening ceremony that maybe I can share my screen for. Actually, I won't be able to. Oh, actually, yeah, I will be able to. I'm just going to quickly present for a little bit. Here, so it was also shared in the opening ceremony that you could build something on ZK email and ZK TLS, and that is something that we would love to see more of. So for example, this is something that we are personally very excited about as a team, as a project, exploring the possibilities of what you could do with when sending transactions could literally mean like sending an email. So this is something that ZK email can provide. And ZK TLS is this other project that'll that can help you create applications using currently existing Web 2 applications out there. So for example, Uber Eats, Uber, Starbucks. So any application that stores user data, you can use ZK-TLS reclaim to literally do what the name says, like reclaim users' data and do stuff with it. So one example, they actually share a bunch of examples in their documentation, but you could have maybe, allow users to gain points for every coffee they purchase at Starbucks, for example, like a crazy example. But, you could come up with some crazy ideas like that. Another thing that we would love to see using Lit protocol is that, Lit protocol, and especially the decentralized compute, what it allows you to do is that create decentralized version of Zapier, for example, or IFTTT, if anyone remembers IFTTT from like back when it was pretty famous. So in terms of Zapier, so if something happens, do something. So just think of it this way, that if you can create a trigger and you can create a response to a trigger, so not create, so you can define a trigger. So for example, if the price of a token goes below a certain value, turn off this light bulb in my home. You could come up with crazy ideas like these, and also some relevant ideas through this. So you could also you could compose these triggers and responses to triggers to up until like as many steps as you want. And it is possible with Lit protocol. And you can, given Xion's strength of meta accounts, you could sort of abstract away all of the user onboarding through it. So you could imagine like really user-centric applications on chain, where user doesn't even have to know that things are happening or things are interacting with on-chain stuff. So yeah, these are like a few projects that we are personally very excited about and would love to see more hacks being built on top of it. But obviously don't let your creativity be limited to this. Let your imagination run wild. That's the whole reason of why XION exists and why meta accounts exist. Because now that so the biggest challenge in blockchain has always been how difficult it is to onboard users. And now that it's not that difficult, now that XION is the answer to that problem, that you have meta accounts, you have abstracted away all of the user onboarding. So what can you build really? So the possibilities now include Web 2 as well. So you don't just have to think in terms of crypto or Web 3. You can think whatever and create whatever.
This sounds pretty cool. So like, I'm very excited to see what projects are coming out of this hackathon. There are a few more questions. So one is if there is like any SDK for Flutter.
Oh, we don't, unfortunately. But I don't think I know any teams off the top of my head who have created interactions using Flutter mobile. But I'm sure it should be easy to set up though. So if you look into the React guide that I've linked in the Notion page, you'll see that the client, like connection to the client and sort of signing transactions, all of the code is available online and it's completely open source. So you should be able to translate it over to Flutter. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't have an SDK available right now.
Okay, fair enough. And then probably most interface can be done through standard networking library or lab.
If by standard networking library you mean the SDK, then yes. The SDK that was shared and is linked in the doc, then yes.
And then another interesting question is like, if I lost my email, is it possible to retrieve the meta account? Like, how does this type of account recovery work?
I'm sure you can, but I haven't really personally tried it out myself. But yeah, it is possible. And if you see in the settings app, you should be able to connect multiple accounts using passkeys, MetaMask, and your email. So it is possible, yes.
Okay, so I think that would be it in terms of the Q&A. If there's like anything you would like to mention, now you would still have the time to like mention what you forgot to say.
I get like all of the docs are already shared. Again, maybe I can mention that make sure that you're subscribed to the calendar that is linked in the hackathon details page, like on the top. I think that is the first or second link in the timeline section. Make sure that you're subscribed to it and make sure that you have bookmarked the Notion page that was shared today, because we'll be adding more workshop handbooks like right under here. For the calendar, every week you can expect the Monday of the week. So basically the remaining 2 weeks, you can expect Monday of the week to have like a quick overview of what the week is going to look like, what the workshops are going to talk about. And all of the helpful resources should be linked in the event description. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And also feel free to ask any questions in Discord or Telegram, and we should be able to help you.
Perfect. So I think we can wrap up this session. So like for all the hackers, please also join their Discord, ask questions over there. And thank you very much, Angela, for joining us today and doing this incredible workshop about getting started with XION. There will be more of these cool sessions, so stay tuned. And I'm very looking forward to seeing all the incredible projects building on top of XION, and hope to have you soon again. So guys, keep building and kicking off the next incredible project in Web3 that will onboard the next billion users. So thanks a lot and see you.
Excited as well. Thank you.